Hello there, fearless diagnostic gurus. We are here for our season three recap. We're going to do things a little bit differently this time, but just because we like to mix things up. So, we're going to start with kind of some general highlights from the season and then talk a little bit about the individual guest. And then we wanted to just give you a kind of an update or maybe like an inside the inner workings of Diagnostic Guru on like where we're at right now, where our heads are at, what we're thinking for season four, and just talk a little bit about like the state of the what feels like the world to us right now, and kind of how that's influencing our decisions around this. I've got Lesley here with me, our illustrious host. Hi, Les. How are you today?
Good, Jess. How are you doing? I cannot believe we're closing season three.
I know it's really hard to believe that this idea that sort of started as like a well, I think it really started as a dare from me to you has
Most
now
likely.
yeah has now become three seasons of a podcast that has gotten a fair amount of attention. So that's really kind of both gratifying, but also, as we'll talk about a little bit later, kind of created some challenges for us on what do we do with it now. So let's kind of hop into the season and talk about like high level thoughts. I think one of the most interesting things for me, we tried something a little new as far as guests on this season, and we had on Helen McKeon and Christine Knapp, who brought to their episodes like a little bit of a different spin on the topics that we usually talk about. So Helen talked about her experience with Lululemon and how she works with companies and with individuals on avoiding burnout. And Christine is really an executive coach who works with people. She specifically spent a lot of time talking about imposter syndrome, which I thought was like super helpful and something most of us experience. But these ended up being actually two of our most popular episodes for the season. And I kind of have to wonder if that is because they focused on how you make change within your own sphere of influence. Or that they really gave people kind of some tangible examples of um, things that you can implement no matter where you are. I feel like our audience is just like us. They're desperate for voices that can help them stay motivated, to find joy, to kind of deal with the suck. And voices that are blunt enough to say things that aren't the same rigmarole are really more powerful for them. So I don't know. What did you think?
No, I thought the same thing. I think it was nice to bring this outside view into an industry that we've mostly been interviewing in with a perspective that is not already sort of tainted or brainwashed by what we've been brainwashed over the past 20 years, right?
Right.
And how you approach things and see things differently. I mean, as you know, I've been working with Christine for a year, and her perspectives are very, enduring for me because I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. And also just talking to somebody like her or Helen in a way of that they actually have the same issues and the same feelings personally, but they have a different way of approaching it and how to handle it because that's sort of how they go about their professional life as well as right their personal life. So I really would love to understand more from our audience. Why is it that these two were the ones that really sort of honed in on for them? Because we're still talking pretty much from the most part to the same audience, right? The
Yeah.
same industry. And I'm sure, we've broadened our reach a little bit just because we brought them in from their worlds and hopefully we're getting the community bigger, but and networking out there. But if this is really what people are earning to hear and listen to, then this is really where we would like to spend more of our focus on to give people more tools on how to handle these situations.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we'll talk about this, kind of when we get to where our head's at, but it's a little bit in conflict with what I'm going to say next, which is the other super interesting piece, if we look at the data, which we're prone to do as scientists, is that the YouTube short, so we've been, testing out YouTube shorts this season, with Julia's clip about her take on AI and how she and her company have focused on training their staff on how to use AI, not kind of fostering that fear that jobs will be stolen by AI. It's our most watched short by hundreds of eyes. And so it may be different mediums as far as like what the audiences are picking up on or different algorithms, but I do think it reflects just how big of an anxiety that is as well, and how leaders are kind of grappling with how to do the right thing by their people, and not get left behind at the same time.
No, it's so true. I think we're all sort of grappling with that specifically as it comes, to AI, and she's being a realist, in this situation. I mean, here, that's what her business, I mean, they're pre-AI, right? For so to speak. And so it's nice to hear how somebody lives it and breathes it, utilizes it in her workforce to not make them feel like they're going to be replaced. Right. And so I think that really brought some humility to that. And I think if we could find more people or more conversations around that to help people sort of manage these uncharted waters at this time in, our lives, could be really helpful and impactful. And I think her honesty really shone through to the point where she even, right, followed up with us after the fact on some of the topics that she talked about. It opened up conversations for her and her employees that were never there before. It made people feel more comfortable to talk about it. So that really felt like, okay, we're actually making change, right? We're actually helping people. And that's really what we're here for, right? Like we are mission driven individuals, and our whole we had a long conversation about this before we got on today. Our whole purpose of why we got into what we were doing is because we want to make change for the better. And it's becoming harder and harder, right, to do good in this world, especially in the industry that we've both lived and breathed and trained in.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think actually that was brought home by the two Women in Bio compilations that we closed the season with. First of all, they were super fun to make, but it allowed us to see or to listen to a lot of voices over a short period of time from vastly different backgrounds, but there's a lot of similar experiences there. A lot of stories that are really straight up shocking, but also a lot of introspection, and really being able to take those bad and ugly moments and figure out how to utilize them to make change, right? Both in themselves, in their teams, in the way that they work, or simply to just change the organization because it just wasn't possible there. Um, I think that, it might be something that we want to do more of so that we can get that volume of voices. Because I feel like in a very short period of time, there were three or four things from each of those episodes that I was like, I'm going to write that on a sticky, which is always my
Yeah.
benchmark for whether we were doing something right.
Well, and it makes it easy for us to have that tagline for that episode, right? From the women that we talked to. And for me, I always love this time of year after we finish a season because I love going back and listening again. I love the first time I get to hear it live after doing the interview, and then I love going back and listening to it again. I'm pretty shocked sometimes in myself and in how I respond and question, but also in the individual and the wisdom that they bring to the table. And so yeah, I loved having this like compilation of women who I've gotten to know well, right? Personally being part of the program. But they also brought a lot of information around not just like the challenges of their career, but being a mom and
Mhm.
being a career mom. And it was really warm and enlightening for me to hear that because we are still kind of trying to muffle that down, you
Yeah.
know, as a society. And so it's still a challenge. And so I think we need to be more open to allowing people to have that freedom emotionally and physically, if they have to leave the office or whatever, but allowed to have those emotions in the workplace because a lot of what we do day to day is not easy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget Ivana saying that, her mentor asked her after she had her second kid, "Are you still serious about your career?" Like, what a dagger to the heart,
Yeah.
Like here you are. I just I think that's why sharing so many of these experiences is so important because I wouldn't know how to answer that question
I'd be
after, I
pissed
had my
probably.
daughter. Sorry.
I would be pissed.
Yeah, but if you think about it, you say that, and you would be after the fact when you got back to your desk and you had
Yeah.
time to really process. But in the moment, you're weeks postpartum. what could you possibly say? Like, how could you possibly answer that question, right? So I think it also really reminds me, these compilations in particular, because these are all leaders who are looking at kind of that next level boardroom status, but it really reminds me that we must pull our experiences from what we went through into how we want to be as leaders. We
Mm,
can't let those two things get disconnected. It's like
great
if
point.
you felt that if someone made you feel this kind of way coming up, it should be inherent in you, a goal for yourself as a leader to never make someone else feel that way, right? And if you do, because we're all human, then to take that humility to apologize, like to
Yeah,
own the responsibility of that. And I think that that's a really important lesson. And when you start to have, a group of, I think we ended up with 11 really high-powered women being able to tell those kind of vulnerable stories, it really makes you start to see what kind of leader you really want to be.
absolutely. I mean, I think people lose sight of that, right? And they just move on to the next thing. We have short-term memories sometimes, and that's why I always say kindness with strength.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, on that note, let's move on to kind of individual guest and what our thoughts are there. Um, because it's a little bit what I wanted to talk about with Helen. I went back and listened to that episode, and the thing that just keeps sticking with me is she talked about how one of the questions they asked at Lulu was, "When are you in awe?" As
Yeah.
the way to like benchmark, what good looks like at work. I get that, right? Because my first job coming out of the hospital for a startup was that kind of unicorn. And I do relate. I don't know if I would say I felt it every day, but I felt it a lot. And I feel like a lot of my career has been since then chasing that from company to company until I just finally said fuck it and decided to create my own version because I realized what a unicorn it was. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I said, I even said to her, I said, I wish I could work for you. Just because of her perspective and having that mission, like how important the mission is. And that's always something I've tried to build with my teams, right? Like I love when you're working together, a well-oiled machine for the same mission, and there's no drama, there's no bullshit, there's no water cool. You stay away from the water cooler politics, the office politics, which came in from another guest. But yeah, I don't understand how that's gone away, and I don't know if some of it is just as over time, like especially for me, I've gone from startup to startup. I've worked for a lot of startups. The idea is so exciting, but once you get under the hood, you're like, ooh, the awe is really not there anymore. So how do you try to continue to bring that to the table even when it's not there is really the challenge. And I think a lot of that comes from the leaders that you have at the company or individuals like Helen to drive that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We took a hard left in our next episode and went to Michelle, who is a principal in an investment firm. I feel like I learned so many tangible things from her, but what was I think you're the one of the ones who just brought her to us. So what was your thought about interviewing someone kind of that different back to back?
Yeah, I think for us, we were hearing a lot about in season two around the struggles of companies and getting financing and the current
Right.
economic and geopolitical landscape. So we were kind of looking for that perspective. But at the same time, I loved that she has her own VC venture firm, but also comes with a science legal background. So she's
Yep.
kind of worked, and she comes from diagnostics. So she's worked both sides. And so I just wanted to get her perspective on, the nitty-gritty of where we are and the challenges that we're up against. I think for me, what was so surprised, there's a couple of things. I mean, obviously her personal story and her kids was just awe-inspiring
Right.
to me. But as somebody who's always the scientist who's building the product to sell to the investors, when I tried to talk a little bit about the commercialization timeline and the unreal, you know, like the realistic timeline is just not feasible, she just was pretty much like, if you don't please your investors, you risk them leaving you and they'll go on to somebody else. So it's like, how do you balance that,
Mhm.
which, and then the other thing is she's on several boards. She's a very, prominent leader in our space, but like she talked about, we need to wipe the diversity of thought. Like how we interpret things, and we don't need to put a label um, to it. So I think that was really interesting too, because I'm sure she sat on some in very many seats in her world, especially in the finance space, being the only woman in the room. And how do you, go about that challenge? So I loved her approach and and the information that she brought. I thought it was very educational for me.
Yeah, I think the other thing she said for me, kind of in that educational space too, is that, she works specifically in healthcare, and she made the point that women's perspective is especially important, particularly in healthcare, because those are the consumers, because
Mm,
women were the ones making healthcare decisions for our households. So it's not just that our voices should be at the table or whatever, it's that they're valuable. They
yeah.
have value because we are the one that's making decisions in our own families that impact profit. And I
Mm,
think that reframe is really something that we as women could utilize as like a PowerPoint. That
yeah.
it's not just that our voices should be there, it's that our voices are the voice of the customer.
They're
And
already
so,
there.
yeah, we're already there. Like whether you like it or not, our voice runs your table. And so, I mean, you're
Cooks
right.
it, puts it. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. And so, owning that a little bit more, I think, maybe could be the confidence that women need to be more involved in the investing world.
It's a great point. It really is a great point. Yeah, I love that.
And then we have Julia, who was just so transparent. I really appreciated this about, the challenges she's had with her company, being a multinational company, living in a different place than her company, but also then her co-founders and kind of the challenges that they went through ultimately to decide the future of the company. Um, and her perspective on AI, right? Like I just love that how simple she made it sound, that it was like, yeah, like we teach our people how to use AI. And
Yeah.
so there'll always be value there, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think to your point earlier, she had talked about how her talking about the difficulties with the founders open up conversations within her own company. That's really like, I mean, that's a home run for us.
Yeah.
If something that is talked about on our show opens up any type of discussion. And I think it kind of shows that sometimes people just need an invitation, right?
Hmm.
They just need a door to be able to know that it's safe to have that conversation. And it's not when you're gonna just like bring up with the CEO.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, she was so approachable. I mean, I've known her for several years, but never just recently have gotten to get to know her more and more. And so it was really a nice conversation, to have with her, but also that she built six, I mean, she left like some big companies and very comfortable, paycheck, whatever, um, and built a company, was bringing in revenue within like 6 months, So she obviously knows what she's doing. And so I think her perspective is something that people should really listen to if they're up against these same challenges today in the current market on how to implement AI, no matter what your business is, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And she's excited about it. That's the best part. She's not
Yeah.
afraid of it. She's taking it head on.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I feel like I would be a little more scared than she is, but I love
Yeah,
her confidence.
yeah.
Um, so again, kind of another shift. We had Christine after that. I'd love to hear from you what it was like interviewing your own coach.
Oh my God. It was felt like it was kind of full circle, but the most shocking thing for me is how much she shared around her own um issues with imposter syndrome.
Yep.
I mean, that is the biggest thing that she's challenged with her clients, right?
Yep.
And how to approach it. And it was just wow, here she's battling the same thing that we're all battling. And it's what inspired her to build this, her Brain Prime program, which I find very, very helpful. Um, so that was a big learning thing for me. I also learned more about like where she came from and
Mhm.
how she got there, which I didn't really know. But there's key things for me with her is that the positivity, the gratefulness, the gratitude for where you are, and
Mhm.
like don't one thing that I've had challenges with, like, I think about, oh my God, how hard it is or how hard it got to get here. And she's like, but Lesley, look at all those small wins, you
Yeah.
know? that you got to get here. And her thing in the end, like change is one decision away.
Oh, I love that. I love that so, so
Yeah,
much.
it's okay to say no to something.
Yeah. It's also probably really dangerous for me to put that on a sticky note because I change jobs. Like I'm like, change is one decision away. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I probably need a longer term approach. But I did really appreciate kind of talking about the imposter syndrome piece when she said that, you only experience imposter syndrome when you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. Like, what a reframe, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that we were thinking that that's a weakness, but really, you don't experience imposter syndrome when you stay safe.
Yeah. And she even said there's so many people that don't even know they have it because they haven't pushed themselves to that breaking point.
Absolutely.
So it's
Yeah,
time to push yourself to that breaking point.
yeah, that reframe I think is critical. I think
I
if
do
people
too.
realize like, it's like you only get scared when you do something brave. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
so like looking at the why behind the experience, it's because you're being brave, right? You're pushing outside your comfort zone. So I thought that was a really interesting reframe for me. So um, speaking of someone who's been brave, Moran,
Yeah.
she comes across as so centered and thoughtful and prescient. But this is a woman who has spent the early part of her career in the Israeli military, and then has started multiple companies, which could not in the US, so like moving countries, which could not have been easy and certainly must have been scary. But I just like I loved everything about this interview. I thought, she approaches her answers with this measured thoughtfulness, but she still has like a bunch of good humor, right? Which I think was just like such a salve at a time when the world was, I don't know, just headed toward dumpster fire status. So and I've repeated her line over and over again about freedom of thought being the antidote to the AI takeover. I just I feel like that's such a I don't use the word inspire often, but I feel like that has really rekindled some of my own inspiration around the importance of telling stories, and why I really want to do that because it does feel like it sits in that freedom of thought space that just can't be taken over by AI.
Oh my God. If I could literally, like I said to her, like back in the day, that's what scientists did. They just sat around and got paid to think. They didn't have to be on Zoom calls and, lecturing and whatever else. Like that's all Einstein did all day. Now, of course, he, invented the atomic bomb, which is not great, but the idea that we could have time to think, that is just like a dream, for me. And so I loved that too because there's a little bit of a guilt. It's like, oh, Leslie, you're using AI for that. You shouldn't be using it. Well, why not? It's making my life easier. I'm still producing good work. I'm still doing good by my clients. So yeah, I thought that was great. And the other thing for me with her is just that she's a mom of three boys
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
how she's trying to change their perspective. She's a strong woman leader and building her own companies and all of that. And so I thought that was a really cool. I was imagining her in the house with the boys running around, you know, creating chaos and she's just calmly there, like, controlling that chaos.
Yeah, and I mean, didn't she say like they've never known any different, right?
Yeah.
Like, so they'll never know any different than a woman in a leadership position. And it again, her measured, thoughtful, but profound approach. I mean, she said it so simply and so obviously, but I mean, wow, like it's just profound that there are three men growing up in the world who have never known life outside of their mom being a CEO. Like,
Can't imagine.
wow.
I know. I feel, great love and admiration for all the women that are going to be in their lives, whether it's friends, relationships, etc., family members. Like, wow, that's amazing.
Such a gift, such a gift.
Yeah.
So, listen, the Women in Bio compilations was your idea, and I think it was a fantastic one. And it came obviously from your own experience in the Boardroom Ready program and getting to meet all of these women and really hearing their stories and wanting to share that. But I'd love to hear from you how you think it went on the other side, like now that you've seen
Yeah,
it.
I know. And it was funny because I recorded them over several months. I mean, I
Mhm.
think we started in December and just ended like at the beginning of this month. And so I feel like, oh my God, is this going to be like a repetition of me? You get to see me in multiple different outfits and
Yeah.
personalities.
Seasons.
Yeah, seasons, you name it, whatever mood I was in that day. But I really love how it turned out. It was so great to go back. And I loved how you juxtapose them across two separate episodes. And I'm so thankful to those women for being courageous to come on board because they are at a pivotal moment in their careers right now because it's not easy to get on a board as a woman. It takes, they say, at least 2 years to get that first seat, but you have to actively, work at it. And so it was funny when we were in one of our lectures or whatever at the offsite for the program last year. I don't know, it just came to me. I was like, wouldn't it be so amazing to like represent these women in a way on the importance of programs like these? But at the same time, we were going through such a controversial thing in our geopolitical landscape around the DEI movement, removing women and Gina Ford being challenged, like she was being honest with us and telling us at these offsites, like, I'm actually thinking I might have to remove women from the name of our company. Like, and the only reason we have these organizations is because we as a society enforce us to because women are not the first to be chosen right on boards. Like men don't need a men in bio or a men in
Right.
bio board ready program. So it would be nice to eventually get to the day that we don't necessarily need those things.
Yeah.
But unfortunately we do. And so yeah, I really loved those episodes and they all had such unique points around there and some very like scary bad and uglies
Mhm.
that I thank them for having the courage to share when you could feel on some of them the nervousness to
Yeah.
share that information.
Yeah, like, well, and then I had to pause when I was listening and editing Stephanie's when
Oh,
she was talking about how the COO was cooking the books, but she just thought she didn't understand finances, and so went and got an MBA, and then ultimately he like went to jail. I'm like, wow, if that's not a come full circle moment, right? Um,
affirmation, yeah.
I like I don't. Yeah, I mean, there's bad and ugly, and then there's like TV worthy. So
And
that's
risked her relationship with her kids and her family. Like her kids were
yeah,
little, like here she's been, and she's questioning herself
yeah.
when she was right all along.
It is really fascinating that whole rub between trusting yourself
Mhm.
and also being willing to say, I don't know what I don't know. Like I
Yeah.
heard both of that there, right? Like she
Right.
was like, okay, this isn't making sense. I don't have any experience in corporate finance. I should go get that experience, right? And at the same time, there's this little voice in her head that's like, something is really messed up here, right?
Yeah.
And so to have the gravitas to and the humility to say like, I think I just need to shore up my skills here. That I don't know. I don't know that I would have done that. I take my hat off to her.
Yeah. Well, and the way she talked about it was just very sort of, I don't know, avant-garde, like just like, yeah, and this is just what happened. And,
Yeah.
like it wasn't, I'm sure at the time it was a big deal. But I also, for me, sitting in her shoes as a PhD scientist, I mean, kudos to her, like,
Yeah.
because that's the challenge I have every day with the business side, like
Yeah.
as a scientist, she figured that out and went and got her MBA. So
I know
impressed.
I might have escorted him to jail, but
Yeah.
outside of that. Well, we're at the end of season 3, and you and I have had a lot of conversations off the air around kind of what to do next. And I sort of made the suggestion to you, like, why don't we take this conversation on the air? Because we have heard these same challenges from so many of our guests, from so many of our audience members. And it seems like the thing we just keep running into is no time, no money, no energy. So, you know, putting on a podcast takes a tremendous amount of capital and a whole lot of time. It also takes like an energetic spirit. You have to want to be here, or people can feel that, right? And, we find it so valuable to do this and have been told by several guests and listeners that these conversations have opened up discussions for them. But the question of how to cover our expenses while finding the time to continue this is not a small task. It's one we hear from a lot of entrepreneurs that they're doing the work that they love and that they feel is most valuable, but often that is the work that they're doing for free. So I don't know how we shift that model. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, this has definitely been, I feel like I'm a Gemini in this situation, even though I'm
Yep.
an Aries. Very, courageous, stubborn, just go for it. And that's how this got started, right? I
Yeah.
didn't think about it. The idea came to me from somebody else. I was telling you I was going to do it. That person dropped out on me, and you're like, "Hey, Les, I could help you do that. And why don't we
Yeah.
connect?" I was like, "That's a great idea." Um, and also, it selfishly was sort of a healing thing for me because I just couldn't understand the bullshit that I went through and why is it real? I can't be the only one, right? And you were
Right.
right there sitting by my side experiencing it. So I think all of the women that we've had on who have shared their same journeys, with us, so I don't feel like I'm the only person in the room when you usually do. And it's become something bigger than us. It's not like this multi-million, bigger than us, but it's several hundreds. We've gotten a good following on our LinkedIn site. We're getting a lot of likes, on YouTube as well as other areas. And so we're touching something,
Right.
and so it inspires it. Like, there's a day where I was like, remember, I'm like, I just can't do this, Jess. I don't have the time for this. I don't have the energy for this, right? Like that's why we came up with and the money. Like it's a capital expense outside of my other business, which most entrepreneurs do, right? Like in order to start your other business, you got to pay from, your first business. So it's like, what do we do? And so that's why we've kind of come to this point where like maybe it's time to take a little bit of a pause and reevaluate that. And that's why you came up with this idea. Like we've reached out to the audience, right? We've several times and it's crickets. And I
Mhm.
don't know if people, it's just we're all inundated with information and we just can't like take the time or people are afraid to give their opinions. I'm not sure, but we've gotten a lot of feedback from people, how much they like it, how helpful it's been. We've also gotten reach outs. Hey, can I be on your podcast?
Right.
So we know there's something there, so we don't want to 100% abandon it,
Mhm.
but we got to figure out what is it that we're doing right and what is it that we're just not doing right and how can we be better, right? Like Kate says,
Yeah.
feedback is a gift.
Yeah, and I think as scientists, the struggle that I've experienced is um my typical process is to, go after the data, to interrogate the data, and then to make inferences based on what the data is telling me, not assumptions based on Fugazi, right? And I think it's really kind of messing with both of us because we have so many people telling us that there's value here. But
Mhm.
when we look at the engagement, the actual things that have metrics around them, that's where things get sticky. We can see a certain number of likes or a certain number of views or those sorts of things, and those numbers are all going up. So there's some momentum to be had here, but the problem is that that's quantitative data without any qualitative wrapping. So when we ask for feedback, we get a bunch of likes. Is that you like that we want feedback? Is that is that your feedback? You like the show? Is it that you like that we made a LinkedIn post that day? Is it that you like Kate Scrable who said that quote? There's no way for us to know. And
Yeah.
so it's a real challenge to create a community and a show that's responsive to what people need and what they're looking for. Um, it's also really hard to ask people to do something else. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to be asked to do something else. So, like, I'm very cognizant that even asking people to comment on our LinkedIn post feels like a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
So, we're really struggling with what is a reasonable ask and how do we interpret the data that we have? And maybe most importantly, where is that directing us to take this?
Yeah, I agree. So maybe we just need to do what, excuse me, Moran said, and take some time, freedom, take freedom of thought, and figure this out because I don't even know, from the feedback or the support we get on LinkedIn, are people actually listening or they just like the content that we pull out of the episode that resonates with them, Because
Mhm.
I know podcasts are a thing now. Like there's a lot of podcasts out there. So for those of you who have had listen, I greatly appreciate you taking the time and we try to make it short and sweet, right? Because of that. But I really think that there's something bigger than this and we have our finger on it. We just can't close it. So hopefully taking this break will be a good thing for all of us. And we really want to come out, with season 4 with a bang. We've gotten a groove. We found something, right? And so we definitely want to come back in the fall at some point and continue these conversations because they're really important to have.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, Les, to talk about like the energy piece of it because, we started doing this just for ourselves, basically. Like we say, it was kind of a joke that turned into a thing. And we literally only committed to doing season one with each
Yeah.
other, with our production team. It was like, look, we're only gonna do this once. We have no idea where this is gonna go. Probably the first time I've ever been that fluid about any commitment ever.
Mhm.
Um, and then it very quickly became something that was much bigger than something we were doing for ourselves. And that both gives us a lot of energy. It also takes a lot of energy,
Mhm.
particularly when we feel like we're kind of operating it in a bit of a silo. And I know a lot of people feel this way, right? Like social media. To me, it's like the greatest mind fuck on the planet. It's like we put out something that we spent hours working on and it gets absolutely no traction whatsoever. I pull one quote from a guest on a show, all of a sudden it's like gangbusters,
Yeah.
right? I have
Yeah.
no idea what the difference between the two is, no idea if it's the algorithm, no idea, where that comes from. And for someone who is data dependent, right? Maybe
Mhm.
that's going to become my new bumper sticker. It really, it's really difficult to maintain the energy because, when we get comments like Julia's, where she tells us that we really opened up a whole conversation in her company, gosh, like that is like getting a shot in the arm. I mean, I couldn't, espresso my way to that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
But then when we put out what we think is like really solid work that we feel is really valuable and we can't get the engagement on it, that's a real big energy suck. And so, look, both of us have done things for free for a long time and for a lot less, but I think where we are in our lives as moms and as people who are responsible for bills in our household,
Hmm.
and just like where we're at in our careers, it really requires you to evaluate where you're spending your time, your money, and your energy much more carefully than I did when I was in my 20s.
Oh, absolutely. I don't have the freedom to work all hours of the night and burn myself on both ends, right? Neither do you. And um, if I had my druthers, I would spend more time on this. If it
Yeah,
had brought in something, an income that would allow us, and we have multiple ideas of how to spread it out, right?
right.
These are the decisions that entrepreneurs have every day when
Yeah.
they start something. Like, how can you build something that has meaning, but also people like and want to utilize in a way? And I know we don't have a tangible physical product right now. We may someday, but we have something. And so, yeah, I think it's not that money talks, or money makes us wild, whatever that saying is, me and my dyslexia, but it's important.
Yes. And I also think it's just fair to say that we just want to do business differently
Yeah.
too. Like
Yeah.
we had some really kind and smart advisors tell us at the beginning of this or ask us like, well, what is your product pipeline and what is your 5-year ramp and what is your business plan? And we're like, I don't know, people like this.
Yeah.
Like And again, we're not stupid enough to think that that's good enough.
Yeah.
But we also really like we've done it the traditional way, both of us. We have
Yeah.
been in big business. We have done it the very
Here's our
hard-earned.
business plan.
Yeah, we've done the business plan and we've done it. We've also seen that epically fail
Yeah.
in many, many places. And so I think the one thing that you and I are both committed to not doing is not getting so excited about our ideas that we're willing to sacrifice or put in jeopardy the financial security of our families or our sanity.
Hmm.
But sometimes you got to be a little crazy to make these types of things work. And I think you and I and lots of entrepreneurs that we talk to are constantly struggling with that. What
Yes.
is the line between going all in, right? And maintaining, like, I don't want to go back to eating ramen noodles. I fucking hate ramen. Okay. So, like, maybe peanut butter and jelly. But anyway, like, so what is the line between, going all in on a really great idea, um, and then being really honest with yourself about what your values are at that time and that they may not align with going all in.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I mean, you see other instances of, let's just take from a podcast perspective where they've been out there for years and it took and then they finally, like now they're like the number one podcast, in the country. So this is our new medium.
Yep.
This is who we are as a society. I think LinkedIn is turning a table. It's like Facebook and Instagram, although they're all gonna eventually fall off, right? Fall off the cliff. And so I think the more and more digitized we are, the more isolated we are as a society, and we're more video visual now. This is how we get to know one another, right? I mean, you and I don't live in the same area.
Mhm.
So I think it's just an opportunity for people to listen. I don't, listen from everyday people.
Yeah.
It's really what it is. It's, I'm sure there are a lot of famous people who have great podcasts, don't get me wrong, but there's something about the everyday person that you can connect with. And so I really want to continue this journey, and see where it comes out on the other side. But I also am a little bit tired
Yeah.
right now. I feel like we're hitting our head up against the wall. And so that's hard to have that awe, to be
Yeah.
inspired when you
Yes,
don't know what it is you're
absolutely.
doing, right?
Right. Yeah. I think both of us want to feel that awe in what we're doing and we're sort of um not willing to sacrifice anymore, losing
Yeah.
that, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um so I would, I hate ending on a downer note. And all I kept thinking as we were talking through that is I match my wall, which is in and of itself just a ridiculous thing,
No,
but
you look
so
at,
my
yeah,
person
but
is
look
like,
at you. This is a primary experience of experiment of things we've talked about, how we diagnose things, and you diagnosed yourself, your career, and you pivoted over
yeah.
2 years ago, and now you're an editor and a publisher and those are the books that you've published on. So I think you are a primary test case of this hypothesis that it
Mhm.
does work, right?
It does, and it can, and I think that's why both you and I feel so confident that there's something here because
Yeah.
we've done it. Now, I will also say there was some rock bottoming that happened before that
The
pivot.
ugly.
Yeah, there was some ugly. There was some real ugly that happened before that pivot. And so I don't want to make it sound like some sort of Pollyanna story. Um, but I also think the pivot happened and has so far been successful because um I drew a line between going all in and my family and what was required for me. And I had, support from another income and, lots of things that make that really possible. And I don't want to discount that. But I also think I got to the point where my integrity mattered more than most of that.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do it anymore. And I think that may be at its core, what we're trying to do here is this feels like integrity. This feels like something that we're doing for the right reasons, with the right people and the right voices, with the right message. And we really, really want to make that work.
Yeah. No, again, that's the off for me is right there. And that's where I'm at, right? Like I'm on the cusp for maybe next year or year after that, I'm going to be a Jess and I'm going to have a nice colored back wall with my whole new world of what I'm doing. And it's not healthcare or diagnostic industry, right? So if we can inspire that, then that's worth getting up every day and having meaning in
Absolutely.
life.
Only if you match your wall.
Only if mentor will. And you're painting.
We're doing painting. So there's more to come, Diagnostic Guru listeners. We just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. Join LinkedIn. We'll keep posting there. We'll keep letting you know where we're at. And thank you so much for listening.
Yeah. Thank you for the support, everyone.